We're going to talk about one of Michigan's most urgent problems, foreclosures, right here next on Due Process.
Major funding for Due Process is provided by Meade Lexus of Southfield and Meade Lexus of Lakeside, offering a large selection of new and pre-owned certified premium vehicles.
While others are content to imitate, we'll continue to innovate. The Lexus RX. Why settle for a copy when you can own the original?
And by WWJ News Radio 950, keeping you up to date with the latest news, traffic, weather, sports, and business information 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Live, local, and committed to Michigan's future. News Radio 950, WWJ.
Thank you. I'm Henry Baskin. You're going to hear about foreclosures as if you don't know enough about it. The national press has covered it and said, well, there's an epidemic in this country. But the local press has covered it and said there's an epidemic in Michigan. But we don't know enough about what is being done. There's a few courageous people out there with some interesting programs that might give us some light at the end of the tunnel, just might. Clarice R. Neville-Ewell from Cooley Law School is here. And I want to thank you for appearing here to take your time to try and educate some people and see us out of this morass of foreclosures. Lorraine Brown, Director of the Michigan Foreclosure Project, which is a prevention project for Michigan Property Law, also here. We'll be joined later by a guest by remote, Heather Mooney. But for all too long, we have sat here and done shows on foreclosures, yes, trying to tell people what they were, how they worked, but we didn't give them solutions. Mm-hmm. And it's hopeful at the end of the day we can give them a place to go, some hope that they can keep their home and their kids in their home and not just have another vacant house on another street which has 5 or 6 other foreclosed homes. Mm-hmm. Each one of you have a project that you utilize in order to help people. And let's go to you first and tell me about the project you have, which is actually statewide.
Yes, it's called the Michigan Foreclosure Prevention Project. It's a statewide legal services program. We work collaboratively with housing counselors throughout the state of Michigan, as well as all of the legal services attorneys throughout the state of Michigan. Okay,
housing counselors. What are housing counselors?
Housing counselors are nonprofit agencies. They're part of nonprofit agencies, and they're certified by the Michigan State Housing Development Authority, okay, MISHDA, or the United States Housing Urban Development, HUD. And they provide counseling, homeownership counseling to homeowners for free. Okay. So homeowners should not go out there and get advice or counseling from services that they have to pay.
Yeah, we should get into that later, yeah, because the TV ads are all over the place. Yes. They're going to take care of things. Mm-hmm. Tell me what's going on at Cooley Law School.
Well, at Cooley Law School, we are dedicated to ethics and professionalism, and that means that all of the programming that we have for students is designed to both educate them, but at the same time we're dedicated to our community. Mm-hmm. And last year we established an organization for students called the 10 Commandments of Real Estate Law Society. And this organization has many purposes, but one of the essential purposes is to go out into the community and educate the community about this real estate crisis. But the purpose of the organization is broader than that, but because foreclosure, and I'd be inclined to say as a pandemic, because foreclosure is a pandemic, most of the programming has centered on trying to educate people about the current state of Michigan law to help them.
Well, yeah, but it seems too late. I mean, they're already in foreclosure and now they come to see you and say, well, what can we do?
Well, I mean, ideally not. I mean, the way we're structured, and let me just give you an example of late. We were in Dearborn, Michigan, and met with homeowners, and you're never sure exactly what, is going on with your audience, but we had a gauge, and most of these individuals may have been on the threshold of foreclosure, because ideally, that's when you want to talk to people so that you can hopefully ameliorate some of the concerns that they have first, but at the same time provide them with the information so that they can take advantage of our current law,
Okay.
which does help them.
Well, here's the point. As I say, we've sat here before and listened to the attorney say, this is the procedure, here's how long you have to stay in your home, so forth and so on.
Mm-hmm.
That can't be the answer. That can't be the answer because these foreclosures are wrecking everybody's economy.
Yes.
This is an example.
Across
I mean,
economic and
well,
ethnic.
Here's someone in a $2 million home saying, hey, my neighbor is taking the chandeliers out of his house. He hasn't made his payments. He's taking the plumbing out, and we're watching him do this at night. And then the sign's going to go up for sale, foreclosure. Diminishing the property values, putting someone else out on the street. I have people come to me who say, we've lost our home. Where do we go? They didn't know where to go. They called the mortgage company. The mortgage company said, we don't have your mortgage. It's somewhere in Scotland or Ireland or somewhere.
Right.
Well, I mean, that was sort of one of the sort of the intent or the purpose or the goal of the new foreclosure law that was implemented in July of 2009.
Which I understand you helped foster
Yes.
through the legislature.
Yes. We got complaints from homeowners who said, I'm calling my mortgage company and I'm not getting any help. I'm talking to someone from another country who doesn't know anything about my mortgage or can't help me. And at the same time, we were also hearing from housing counselors who are saying they're having difficulties helping homeowners because they will talk to someone from the lender, the customer services, collection services.
Right.
They will tell them one thing. They'll talk to someone from loss mitigation. They will tell them another thing. They'll talk to someone else, and they'll tell them another thing. So they don't know who to talk to. So as a result of that, the legislature said, let's try to fix this problem. The goal is to get all the parties to the table and sit down to avoid foreclosure.
Well, do they come to the table?
Well, the new law is ideal. The intent of the new law is to have all of them to the table.
Okay.
So before they can foreclose, the lender is supposed to send a letter
okay.
out to the homeowner saying, you're in default. We're going to give you an opportunity to come to the table to negotiate for a loan modification.
So people who are in default should
Yes.
understand they're going to receive a letter.
Yes.
That's state law, right?
Yes,
Yes.
it is. Yes.
Okay.
And it's very important to let people realize that when they're in trouble, they have a tendency to put the letter away, thinking, I
Yeah.
won't open it, I won't touch it.
It's bad news.
That's right. And you've been getting a series of letters, but part of the reason why we're here, and I thank you again for this opportunity, is because we want people to know you've got to open that letter because
Okay.
there is a window of opportunity that passes you by. You have 14 days.
Yeah.
Only 14
to
days.
go to a meeting.
No.
To respond.
Yeah,
when
the
it's
letter says, you're in default. By law, we're going to give you a 90-day period to begin a negotiation process. You have 14 days to contact me. You can also contact a housing counselor who can contact us on your
Okay.
behalf and negotiate this process.
So do you recommend that these people respond within 14 days and keep a copy or somehow verify they've done it?
My advice is they get this letter and they immediately should contact a housing counselor. The housing counselor.
How do they find
And
a
we should
housing
say
counselor?
certified again.
Yes,
Certified
How
housing.
do you
Under the-
find a certified housing counselor? This is important to
Yes,
them.
no, it is. Under the law, that
Yeah.
letter that they receive from the lender should include a list of all of the MSHDA certified and HUD certified housing
And
counselors.
they should contact one of those people.
One of those people
And
on
they do
those
this
lists.
without charge, is that correct?
Yes.
That's correct,
yeah.
and that's
Okay.
crucial.
So all these scam ads I see on television, we're going to talk about that if we have time later on.
Exactly.
Ignore those.
Yes.
And it's
Deal
also
this way.
important to recognize, and some of our legal colleagues might disagree, but because of the way that the statute is structured, this amendment, you can go to a HUD or MSHDA certified non-legal housing counselor. So in
Right.
essence, the lawyers at this level aren't necessarily needed because the statute, sort of insists upon this structure. So often people are scrambling, trying to use the money that they might use to pay their mortgage to
Right.
pay someone, lawyer or not. But
Don't have to do that.
right, you can use this non-legal
Okay.
advocate. so
Now,
to
when
speak.
these people sit around the table, is there any light at the end of the tunnel? I mean, is there a possibility that we're going to restructure their mortgage?
Yeah. Well, as I said, here's a sort of a clinch a hiccup in the statute, in the sense that the statute says who should be at the table would be the homeowner, housing counselor, and the designated agent. The designated agent is someone from the bank or the lender, who has the authority to modify or change the terms of the loan. Yes. So when they're all at the table, they can walk away with a loan modification. So we have had the problem here where the designated agents in the state of Michigan have been the lawyers.
The lawyers who did the
foreclosure lawyers.
Oh, that's great.
So they're the ones who come to the table, and oftentimes, as you and I know, they don't have the authority to modify the terms of the loan. So a lot of times, housing counselors are faced with some level of frustration.
Do those housing counselors report it to some state agency? Because you're dealing with, if the lawyer's there, the lawyer who foreclosed on you is now there. He put you in jail. Now he's going to charge you to get out of jail. But he can't keep you out of jail forever. I mean, I don't understand that.
Well, he hasn't foreclosed yet, but he hasn't foreclosed.
Because let's review again. You have 14 days.
After you get the letter.
After you get the letter to either consult, call directly or consult with a housing counselor.
Will that letter come from the mortgage company? It may not even be the mortgage company.
No, it's coming from the designated agent, which is a letter from the foreclosing attorney's office. So, which is what we have also advised homeowners to. It will not say it's coming from Chase or Bank of America. It will say it's coming from law offices of Trott and Trott or Orleans or Cotostiva. So one of the major ones.
And it's coming first class mail. It's not one of those throwaway things.
No, it's going to be certified return receipt requested. So the homeowner needs to sign off on that letter. So I will say, as I said, initially we had some problems because the designated agent would be at the table and basically just collected papers from the homeowner and did nothing. But we have actually, and so housing counselors who we work with would report that to us, and we would contact those attorneys and say, look, as the law says, the designated agent must have authority to negotiate. So we at least have been getting reports that some of these meetings are taking place where actually the designated agent, the attorney, shows up with a phone number to
get authorization.
To get authorization.
And that's ideal.
This statute, you told me, is going to expire.
Yes.
In a few short months, July of 2011.
Yes, that's correct.
Which would put us back to where we were
without
5 years
any
ago.
opportunity to modify. And I want to clarify, because you said we need something to help us. And unfortunately, as we all know, at the end of the day, if you don't have a job, and certainly our region is suffering tremendously, if you don't have a job, that's going to make it difficult. So the statute isn't going to solve all problems, unfortunately. But it at least gives you a window of opportunity because it stops that clock. And then you get another 90 days, and hopefully maybe you might get a job, or you might be able to resolve the issue in the interim.
Gives you some breathing room.
Yes.
We're gonna go to a break, and when we come back, Heather Mooney is going to join us by remote to talk about her initiatives and her programs.
Yes.
I can't tell you, people, how strongly I feel about the abandonment by the federal government of those homeowners who are put out of their homes, after being, in effect, scammed by mortgage people who said, you just sign this, it doesn't matter, we'll tell you what it's worth, we got our own appraisers, and you sign this, and here's a credit card, you can borrow more money if you want, and goodbye, and we're going to sell that mortgage to someone in the Yucatan Peninsula. And they don't care, and they could care less. And the federal government is funding part of your program, I understand.
No, we're not funded by anything.
So where is the federal government? Nowhere to be seen in this process right now. Oh, we'll come back after the break.
Very good. Thank you.
Legal referrals and more information on this and other related topics are available on our website at www.dueprocess.tv. There you'll find information on today's program, helpful hints to legal issues, support materials, and lawyer referrals. You can also stream previous episodes of Due Process.
Hey, we're back talking about foreclosure, and the pandemic of foreclosure in our country and in our state. Heather Mooney is going to join us here. If you take a look at the screen, Heather, welcome to Due Process. She's a certified housing counselor, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, that is.
Tell me what you do as a certified housing counselor.
As a certified housing counselor, we've set up a triage intake system where we have an intake specialist that receives phone calls from all homeowners seeking services from housing counselors. And we'll set up an appointment. The first appointment's typically about an hour and a half. We sit down with that homeowner and we go through the mortgage foreclosure timeline. We find out where they are in regards to that. We discuss the options that are available to them, the nature of their hardship, and we really talk to them about the longer planning and goals that they have in life to weigh the pros and cons about what options are available versus what ones aren't.
Give me an example of options. I mean, one option is to keep the house or negotiate a reduced amount.
Correct. That would be what we call, the best option out there is the loan modification, and that gives the lender the ability to change the principal amount, to change what we call the PITI, your full payment, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. You can drop the interest rate. You can even forbear principal. So you can manipulate the product where you can really start yourself current with a quote-unquote new mortgage. It's like a soft refinance.
Don't you have to be an advocate? Don't you have to sell that program to that certified person who's going to make a decision for the mortgage lender?
Actually, most lenders are inclined to do so, especially under the HAMP, the Home Affordable Modification Program. There are incentives built in from the federal government for the lenders to do that. It rewards both the homeowner and the lender for qualifying people into that program. And also in the long run, everything will come down to what we call a net present value calculation, where it's really a cost-benefit analysis. The lender has to sell to the servicer usually, for the investor has to sell to them the fact that it will bring them more money in the long run to work with the homeowner.
So you have to sell the scenario. I mean, you have to put a fairly compelling case down and say, it's to your benefit, or whoever the servicer is, whoever owns that mortgage, it's to your benefit to do this as opposed to having another vacant house in another vacant neighborhood.
Yes, you do have to sell it, but if the numbers are there, typically there's not a problem because most of the time, most mortgage companies are on that same page with you.
How does the federal government figure into this? Why are they rewarding these mortgage companies for modifying loans?
Probably due to their interest with the GSEs, the government-sponsored enterprises. Fannie and Freddie hold a lot of the paper these days, and so it's in their best interest that these mortgages perform, as well as the larger interconnected nature that the housing market has to the jobs market, to the whole economy.
Okay, so really it's helping Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, who have most of the mortgages, as you say. It's really helping them as we helped AIG and all these other companies, and General Motors, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Is that, you can say yes if you want.
No,
you
that's
can say
absolutely,
no if you want.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely correct. It's much more challenging to get a non-GSE investor to participate in a lot of the modifications. Those are usually wrapped up in PSAs, pooling and servicing agreements.
When you say GSE, you mean government?
Yeah. Fannie and Freddie.
Right. Okay. So it's in the interest of all of us that Fannie and Freddie Mac are kept above water and that we do these modifications.
Absolutely.
Okay. Have you had success?
Yes. When the numbers are there, we've even had success when buying people extra time so that they can get another job, so they can get a roommate, so they can come up with alternative solutions in the new normal. So I'd say for about upwards of 60%, if not a little bit more, of the cases that we get every year, we're able to get a curable solution, and that means something where
really
they can,
in 60%?
Yeah, where they can keep the home at a minimum, if not a little bit more.
That's a pretty good number. How do people reach you? You work out of Washtenaw County, or are you statewide?
Yeah, we're just limited to Washtenaw County homeowners. However, there's MSHDA's website, and MSHDA, the Michigan State Housing Development Authority, also has a hotline that you can call into. But as Lorraine was mentioning, when homeowners are entering the foreclosure process, they're mailed both certified and first-class mail, a list of all the housing counselors in their area.
Okay, and what are we going to do to make certain that statute continues?
I think
we're all going to work together, right?
Yeah, lots of advocacy, lots of education.
You can.
Can I ask you a quick question? How many homeowners do you see before they receive the letter?
I would say probably the breakdown of homeowners that come to us before they get the letter is roughly at least half. You know, a lot of people, we try to do a lot of education and awareness in our own community, and I think a lot of people, through word of mouth or through that information, come to us beforehand.
Because I wanted to emphasize, you know, to the extent that people sense danger, it might not be a bad idea to get ahead of this and to make a phone call so that we can start the process to get them some help.
Well, yeah, I mean, when people sense danger, I mean, they've already received letters from their credit card company, from their doctors, from the schools that they owe money to, and here comes another letter.
Yeah.
And they perceive that letter to be, hey, you haven't paid your mortgage. So we've got to make people aware that when you get the letter, you've got to act on it.
And even before.
Well,
And
before,
even
for
before
sure.
you get the letter. If you're in trouble right now, get on the MSHDA website.
Well,
right?
you're on the website, right? We can find you on the website, right? MSHDA website? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Our agency is on the website, and then we also work hand in hand with Legal Services of South Central Michigan through Lorraine's program as well.
Okay. Well, Heather, thank you so much. Keep up the good fight. We're gonna cure this somehow, some way. Thank you for coming down.
Thank you.
You know, here the situation is that we have to take these people who've been inundated by debt and almost defeated, almost feel that they just can't do anything because no one's helping, and tell them what is available. We're going to connect your websites. We're going to put it on our website, and we're going to send people to you so they can do this.
Yes.
Now, you can't guarantee success. I know that.
But at least with information, people can take advantage of options. You know, if people are unaware, as lawyers, we know that that's never an excuse.
Right.
To the extent that you're unaware of your rights, that's too bad. But because of the nature of this pandemic, it seems to me that as a profession, we have a responsibility to make sure that this is the information that everybody is aware of, because virtually everyone either knows someone or themselves is in the midst of this problem.
You know,
And, you know, at the end of the day, if we don't do it, who will? What other profession should step up in this
well,
instance?
the law profession should, but so should the state and federal government authorities step up and do what they can. We can no longer accept the principle that you can't pay your mortgage, you're out of the house.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't accept it, because if you
Right.
go back in time to when that adjustable rate mortgage was signed, some guy was sitting there saying, hey, just sign these papers. You don't bother reading them. You don't need a lawyer. You don't need anything. And here's what you get. You get a low interest rate. You see in 20 years or 10 years or whatever. They don't have a clue as to what they signed. How many people know what they signed?
Exactly.
Oh, they also don't, I mean, they don't even know that what they sign now, too, in terms of the loan modification. They still come to us. I mean, and also, I mean, that's getting to the cause of this whole, you know, pandemic, if you want. I mean, you know, it's I've been doing consumer law, foreclosure work, you know, over 10 years, so it's not something I just got into it. And the consumer advocates saw this before it's coming down the road, you know, because you saw the homeowners that we were seeing getting into bad loans. They were called predatory loans, where they were being sold, you know, loans with high costs and high fees, and we were yelling and screaming, saying this is not right. Look at what homeowners are being sold. And so, you know, if you talk to any kind of homeowner when they get this, they will go in. I mean, I had a client who went in for a fixed loan, and they said, well, you know, the paperwork says you had an adjustable rate. So it's not, so it's also being sold that. They said, well, you know, I did say that. Well, I did say, well, this doesn't say fixed.
Right.
But you have them at the table with the broker telling them, well, don't worry about this.
Well,
this is something that will get fixed in
Well,
the
how
2
about
years.
the euphemism they used? When you went down there 5 years ago, 10 years ago, they said, well, your interest rate's only 4%.
Yes.
But you have to pay some points.
Right.
Do they know what points are? You have to pay
Exactly.
5 or 6 points, and they say, okay,
Exactly.
fine. As long as my payments are this, I don't care about the points. It's like the leases for cars and
Exactly.
things like that.
Exactly.
Someday we're all going to get back here, and we're going to talk about the credit cards. We're going to talk about the back of the credit cards that no one reads. It says you can pay up to 19.5% interest, or maybe 21% interest.
Right.
And I tell people the best investment they can make is to pay off the credit card, because you're not going to get 20% interest anywhere else.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Through
So
the
just pay
bank,
up.
you get what, 2% or 1% on
Maybe.
your savings, if that?
Maybe you do. I like the bank.
Yeah,
Right,
right.
I know it's so low.
I mean, the point of the matter is that we have lied to the public. The state and federal government, the authority, have allowed this to occur.
Yes.
Half those people that were writing mortgages and telling people just sign here, sign there,
Right.
they even had phony valuations.
Mm-hmm.
They said, okay, we can do this because it's it's worth this.
Right.
That house is worth that much. Yeah, you're getting a great deal. Then they find out that those people that value the homes
Yeah.
weren't even wrong. Listen, I don't know how to thank you.
Right.
I mean, I'm going to keep working with you.
Yes, and
to help you
the
as much
American
as I
Bar
can.
Association very quickly responded to this program that we have because we want to get lawyers everywhere involved.
It's about time American Bar Association
We got to get busy, and our program.
Major funding for due process is provided by Meade Lexus of Southfield and Meade Lexus of Lakeside, offering a large selection of new and pre-owned certified premium vehicles.
While others are content to imitate, we'll continue to innovate. The Lexus RX. Why settle for a copy when you can own the original?
And by WWJ News Radio 950, keeping you up to date with the latest news, traffic, weather, sports, and business information 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Live, local, and committed to Michigan's future. News Radio 950, WWJ.